something else, I play a lot of third-person shooters like Uncharted and Tomb Raider. What's hard is aiming at certain enemies because you have to do it quickly. By having something called aim assist, you can either gauge it so the aiming locks on to the nearest enemy, or have a slider to kind of see how far you want it to be automatic or not. And it's kind of key. Disabled gamers find motor skill impairments simply having customizable controls. Changing key binding helps a lot. For people with visual impairments, colorblind options is important. Things like whether an item is distinguished solely by the color red and green can really make things difficult for some colorblind players. And like I said before, for hearing impairments, just having subtitles. Captions is great, subtitles is good. So, like I said before, there are plenty of disabled gamers out there, and it's actually really easy to reach out to us. It could be as simple as an email. Talking about simple things you can do to add in your game is easy. So here are some tools you can use on the internet if you're a developer. I've used this. This is a web aim. It's a way to look at the web standard of contrast and font. So you want like a good example, and it gives you an idea of what the dialogue would look like on a background, a light background or a dark background, depending.
First, it's hard to make one controller that's going to fit everybody. So do you think that developers, the hardware developers, should go towards something universal that everybody can play, or should be like more custom, custom-made controllers that are made out of parts and you can arrange them any way you want?
Yeah, I say both, but I do think it's a great first step. I was really excited to hear about the adaptive controller. For a while there, in the newest generation of gaming, PlayStation was sort of like the best way to go when it came to accessibility. They were sort of the first to have the option to customize every control, like in the default options. So no matter what game you were playing, you could change the controls on the console. So hearing that Xbox, went a step further and made a controller that was actually pretty cheap for what it was, it was really exciting. I want to get my hands on it so I can kind of tell how helpful it is. It seems to have a lot of different ports for different kinds of adaptive technology that you can plug in, and that's great. I think that it's also important, though, not to just say that, okay, well, we did that, so now all games are very accessible. Because even now, I still I don't know if you've heard of a game called Horizon Zero Dawn. It's, very recently made, but I do feel that developers sort of saw, the PlayStation already had accessibility options built in, so we don't have to do anything, and that's not always the case, especially with that game, because the auto aim was non-existent, basically. So it's a good start, and I do think bigger companies like Xbox doing that are creating precedent, and I think that's great.
Yeah, I've just finished my master's, and I made a game about my experiences with autism. But the thing is, I haven't made the game as accessible as it could be because I'm trying to emulate how I am in situations. So things like there's noise in the game, there's lots of writing, and how would anyone make a game about the narrative that makes it accessible to other people if they're trying to emulate a disability or mental health condition?
So you're trying to emulate a disability?
Yeah, but then that obviously excludes people who are hard of hearing or or who are deaf or might not be able to see, because there's lots of colours I'm trying to emulate, sensory overload, I'm trying to emulate sounds and things like make the player anxious. But then that excludes a lot of people who are playing it.
Well, for one, I'd love to help. So if you want to contact me, I'd be totally willing to give any feedback. If you're trying to focus on one type of disability, it sounds like the narrative is about someone with autism. Is that true?
Yeah, it's based on my own experiences, but also the experiences of other women with autism as well.
Yeah, you can, don't go crazy trying to accommodate everyone. You are focusing on one, and that's important. Like I said, there are basic things, just subtitles, if you can, and things like, it sounds like it's narrative-based,
Yeah.
so you may not have to worry too much about whether objects are a certain color.
Yeah.
But no, it sounds like, I would say if it is about someone with autism, maybe think about how someone playing the game who has autism might have trouble. Again, if it's narrative based, then I don't see something like long play hours. I doubt that wouldn't be a problem. If it's something where you have to be reminded, something that might need more updates, you might have an option to say, hey, do this, because someone with cognitive disabilities sometimes have trouble remembering what to do next. But like I said, if you're trying to let people know about a type of disability, don't worry too much about accommodating everyone. Just try the basics.
Yeah, the aim was to raise awareness first, and then think about if I want to make it more accommodating for a wider audience. Because of course I want to make a game that accommodates lots of people, but it's very hard to if you're trying to portray something. So.
Sure. Get back with me afterwards, and I can definitely help any way I can.
Thank you.
I was writing my master's degree about audio description in film and television, and while I'm now working as game designer, I was thinking if there is a possibility of using audio description in specific genre of games. Like, I know that due to rules and the way you use audio description is, I can't imagine it in super dynamic games, but when you've got stuff like, I don't know, visual novel, or there is cutscene. I was thinking if someone was doing it before, like, is it even possible, or is there space for this?
So I've spoken with several developers and consulted on some games. So one thing I know about putting accessibility features in a game, it's always important to do it early in design, because they can be simple, but even something like subtitles being put in last minute can be like a nightmare. I'm sure you guys have played an Assassin's Creed game or heard of it. The first one is sort of known for being like a game that has very thick accents. It takes place in the Middle East, but there are no subtitles. And I was told that a big reason was they waited too long to add it. And it seems simple, but I've heard horror stories about, like the size of a subtitle getting like jumbled up in each cutscene, because it is like a lot of different things, programming, animation. But if you start early, it's not as hard as you think, and it doesn't take as much budget.
So I've got one question about engaging players with disabilities into online competitive games, like I don't know, like Fortnite or Counter-Strike. And with some of the options that would allow those players to actually play the game, like auto-aim, some of the players could abuse this kind of systems. So how do you see, in your opinion, how we could engage players in this kind of games, but at the same time not to create this, well, maybe give more advantage actually because of auto-aim, for example.
Yeah, that's a good question, and I've been looking more into that recently. It's sort of new territory when it comes to online games. One example, the only example I know of is GTA 5. I think it was also something they did in GTA 4. But in online matches, they have the option to turn on, like auto aim, but everyone's able to know who has it, or whether it's in a certain kind of match. So, you know, if you don't want it, you know, I won't play this one, but everyone knows, and I think that's one way to make it so everyone who's playing with you knows what kind of, you know, advantages you have. But it's something I think we should look into it more, because there's not many other games that have that. But I think there's an argument to be made whether, you know, having those features could give some people an unfair advantage. But like I said, I think transparency is the key.
Just like, for sure it's way easier to just start thinking about your game design, features and so on in terms of accessibility. But you, as far as, if I understand you correctly, you are also making some consultant work for companies and
Yeah.
Is it working rather that way, that hey, we are a company and suddenly we realize we would like to have as games as blind players, as deaf players, as players with this or that disability, we would like to have this game accessible for us, and you are requesting developers, like, is it an act of goodwill if developer would like to spend his own money for making game accessible, and what are the differences between, or maybe, because for sure there are differences, how hard is to adapt actual working game, like, for example, half a year after launch, we decided we would like to make this or that.
I mean, like you said, it's harder later in development. I think, again, that's one beneficial thing to modern gaming is now we are less likely to make a game completely finished. Now we can update it and add things like subtitles. Actually, we consulted the website that I read for, we consulted on the new God of War game, and they completely overhauled their gaming experience. It's given a lot more accessibility options, difficulty modes are really fine-tuned. But even with those, they didn't realize that like the subtitles they had were very small, so people with visual impairments had trouble, and they were able, with our like feedback, to update it later with like a feature that would enlarge the subtitles. And it's a process. It can take time, but I think any sort of like interest in doing it is great, whether it be after you're done making the game or, you know, before. It's just easier if you know ahead of time what you're trying to do.
I have a little similar question. Do you believe, or do you think it's even possible to adjust every game for any disability? For example, we have platformers who are game that you have to jump between platform, avoid a lot of avoiding obstacle. Do you think it's possible to design that kind of game for blind people?
Yeah, I don't ever want to say it's impossible to accommodate. I'm sure it is. It's very hard to accommodate every single type of disability because there's all different kinds. But like I said, there's basic things that cover a lot of different people. For platforming, I think the issue might just be fast movement, you know, maybe streamline certain features, but even just having customizable controls goes a long way for fine motor skill impairments. You know, things like subtitles and maybe colorblind options, but just the basic three can really cover a lot of different people. But I never want to say impossible.